one of the things we have to remember is that companies are machines built for profit, and they tend to want to operate as efficient and as lean as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So now, in a situation where you're a person that's giving 110% and you want to be left alone because, hey, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, that's really not what's going to happen. Companies needing to be efficient and needing to run as lean as possible are going to then lay off people because, hey, we got a guy like MVP that could probably do the job of two other people that we had here. We're going to get rid of those people. MVP, these are now your additional tasks because you are that guy.
What's up, y'all? This is MVP with Juxtaposed. Are you tired? Are you tired of being tired? Well, a lot has happened. COVID is officially over, and we're going to talk about the burnout and the effects afterwards. Starting now.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
What's up? We are back. It's the Incrod Boys, as they say. We are here for another episode of Juxtaposed. We're going to tackle today what seems to be a common trend just now. Everybody's tired and sick of it. We're just tired and sick of it. And it is everything. So we're going to talk about it. As usual, I have my co-host, MVP.
Whoop, whoop.
We have Aaron. I
But to say it's formerly known as.
Yeah, I was literally struggling because I was listening to some of our old podcasts where he went by different names. So it's always like the first instinct, even though we haven't done that with that name in such a long time, it's still like programmed. So it feels like we're starting anew, even though we've been doing this for a whole year. We took a couple months off, so
Yeah.
it feels like we're pod newbies again with experience. So either way, we're starting off with this general feeling of just burnout. Like it feels like everyone I talk to feels burnt out. So we want to just kind of start talking about that. And first, let people know you're not alone, because I feel like that's one of the biggest things. It's like, I know that like when I was going through it, I felt like I was alone, and if it wasn't for people telling me, like I had a conversation with MVP and asking if I was okay, like those things were not a thing if you don't have a good group of people around you. So kind of want to start there. How how's everybody feeling, even though I just prescribed that everybody's burnt out, but like how are you feeling right now? And let's start there.
Well, one thing I wanted to note is because these are certain things that I look into. COVID is officially over. If you thought it was over 2 years ago, it's officially been. Now, let's be specific, right? Because I like how you said, is it?
Okay.
What does that mean?
I'm glad that you are going specific.
Okay, Aaron, I got y'all. Listen. So, what you need to know, the federal COVID-19 PHE declaration ended on May 11th, 2023.
So, I mean, it's a couple months. I mean,
So this happened last year.
Yeah.
But last year, like, just think about it. COVID officially started. It officially started in 2020. I want to say around like
February.
February, right? When they really sent everybody home. Yo.
Well, that's when the lockdowns happened.
The lockdown
the
happened.
first time they noticed it was in December or
Yeah, the year before.
Yeah, 2021. Oh, sorry, 2019.
Yeah, but it didn't become mainstream, quote unquote. I'm gonna say that because I didn't know about it until the lockdown, right? I literally was at work one day, the next day they was like, "Yeah, you're not coming back to work for like 2 years." I was like,
Did they really say
"We're
that?
not coming back in here.
Yeah.
We're not coming back in here." So I wanted to start off with that because yes, officially it's been what 3 years that this has been ongoing. Now, what'd you say?
Yeah, we're on the fourth one.
We're on the fourth one.
We're stepping into fourth.
Theoretically, if it ended in May 2023, so it is 3. We're just dealing with the effects of it, the lingering.
The lingering, right? And this is when we talk about burnout.
Because I still know people getting COVID.
Right. It's still like, and let's be clear, it's not going anywhere. It's pretty much like the flu now at this point, right? Like
Right.
it's just gonna be here. But I guess the the panic of the pandemic part is it ended on
Over.
May, like according to the government, until something else happened.
Which makes sense because that's when they were starting to tell people that if you're sick, you no longer have to quarantine for 10 days. It was like now you just do 5 and then you're back in the wild or something like that. So
Oh, really?
yeah, that was the thing. That was the kind of the new mandate, and I think it was really. There's so many things in play here because I feel like some of that wasn't just from a health concern issue. I think that a lot of that was from well, we gotta get the business back to. We gotta get back to business, right?
Yeah.
And
Productivity is failing. We got to get in there.
yeah, so
And so my question, and this is a little bit personal. If you don't want to comment on it, feel free not to.
hey, Juxtaposed is a safe place, so let's get it.
No, I just wanted to know, did anybody actually catch COVID?
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, I did.
I did.
One
I
time.
did not.
you're a lucky
And neither
son
did
of a gun.
and neither did the people that live in my household.
Nice.
So I asked that question to is going to contribute to the discussion I have concerning the burnout, right? So with that being said, like we know it's over technically, and now let's move forward to the burnout part. I actually want to hear from Aaron because he's on a different side of the the states.
He's a different state, yeah.
Yeah,
Little
I
bit
was
more
going to say the
north.
world, but you're technically not the world, but like the states. So, how has things been for you, like around this time?
I can honestly say that I'm definitely one of those people that are feeling that burnout because I don't know. I don't know if it's the transition away from what we've come to know for the last couple of years, almost now reintegrating yourself into the day to day of going to work and having to bring your food with you, dealing with the daily commute, then doing your regular 8 hour day, and then having to then reverse the order of doing that commute back home and making sure that you get something prepared for dinner and making sure that you're in bed on time, still having to keep up with all of the regular workflow of taking care of your house, taking care of yourself. Maybe you're in a relationship, maybe you're studying or you're a student, different things like that. So I definitely feel the effects of that burnout that is that this episode is going to be about. Definitely to the point where it's demotivating from being able to accomplish other things in my life that I kind of had up and running while the pandemic was at its peak.
Okay.
You know, you know what I like in this too? It's always easier going on vacation. It's terrible coming back home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it's literally what it feels like. It's like when we were transitioning into what was the lockdowns and that whole unknown, it felt like it was uncomfortable, but going back to normal feels such a hard thing to do, especially knowing now that there's been such more of an emphasis placed on like mental health and whether the question, do you care about being in the rat race? Do you care about climbing the ladder the same way? All of these things are now in question as a result of the fact that we sat down and it broke the routine. I said at one point I had a routine. I was to work. It didn't matter what was going on, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I took very little sick days. I was always at work. Now it's like I have to take some time off, else I just don't, like, mentally I'm starting to lose my shit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what
And
that's what it
I
feels
wanted
like.
to ask about the normal thing that you just said too. Do you think a part of it is because what we were what we were used to as normal was actually the opposite of what we should have been, I guess, indulging in? It's almost as if, like, let's say, for instance, you're a heavy drinker and that is your normal. Every day you're having a couple of drinks. And then, for whatever reason, there's an embargo on alcohol. You can't have it. So you stop drinking. And now you're feeling better. You're waking up feeling rejuvenated. You're running, you're swimming, you're drinking water, you're feeling good. They lift that embargo and alcohol is free flowing again. So now you go back to your normal and you're drinking every day again and you start feeling like shit. And it's like, holy crap, what is this?
Yeah.
I almost feel like it's something like that because our lives were calamity and that calamity was normal for us. we moved away from that and we actually
Yeah.
started to enjoy a little bit of life outside of running the rat race, because
Mm.
you were still doing your thing, but
Yeah.
you were doing it in a manner where you didn't have to battle the office, other people, commutes, things like that. So now transitioning back into that, maybe that normal, maybe you've come to the realization that that normal is actually, it's been unhealthy.
It's unhealthy. Well, the one thing, and I want to get your opinion because I feel
Okay.
like I'm talking a lot. But the one thing I want to say to that is that I think that at that point before, it's like you don't know what you don't know, right? And at that point, what we did was we coped based on our social interactions. We like the random happy hours, the social events that would make us feel better about being at a job where you're undervalued. All that stuff we did naturally because that's what you did. Like when you were growing up, we partied, right? Like you just go out, you party, it was a social, and that's what you did. You know, people live for the weekend, right? Notice I don't really hear people talking about the weekend like that anymore because we've gotten to the point where it's like we don't want to just live for the weekend. So I agree. I agree with your your analogy there, and I think the question is like it'd be interesting to see what happens in the next like 2-3 years. Like, do we settle back into what we were doing before, or do we have a new space where we've crafted a place that's healthier, for lack of a better word? So, but
Yeah, I like where y'all going with it because, before, can we say like pre-COVID and post-COVID?
yeah,
Just for sake of conversation. So pre-COVID, you had this style of what you did, right? You had to go to work, you had to like, commute, stuff like that. And then you kind of just stop cold turkey, right? And it's not like a cold turkey for like a couple months. It's a couple years. And then I think one of the biggest issues for me is that people try to get back to pre-COVID like COVID didn't happen. And that's been one of my issues that causes stress on me. Because, for example, traffic is way worse now than it was pre-COVID.
yeah,
Because I think more people are doing hybrid, which is a change too, right? I'll tell you something like this. I remember when I was working night shift, and I was working night shift for like 2 years. And then, no, maybe 2-3 years. And then I got a new job, and I had to work day shift. And I got sick because my body's like, yo, what are you doing? I'm used to you working nights and sleeping during the day, and there was no break. I literally started my new job like the next week.
yeah.
Wow.
And my body was like almost breaking down because it's like, yo, you're not even supposed to be up right now. And so I guess why do people expect that you can just go back to something fairly quickly after 2 years, 3 years of doing this other thing? Like you don't do that in any other instance, right? Like because it causes problems. Even to go back to the alcohol thing, going cold turkey on alcohol can actually make you sicker instead of taking your time and like waning it off.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have to acknowledge is like human beings as in general are beings of routine and habits, right?
Okay, yeah,
Those
true.
that's how we're able to survive. And I think the reason that people want to get back, and you see it like with a lot of people, like for companies, you see a lot of the people who've been there with like for a long time, and a higher up want to get people back together because they assume that like, well, if we have people back in the office, then the culture will be better. It's like a one-stop shop for fixing all the things that may be wrong of the hybrid work. And it's just what they know, right? So think about like somebody who's been in their position for 20, 30 years. You've only had 3 of those years be disrupted with this hybrid thing.
Okay.
So you want it to be what it was because that's all you know. So it's very easy to say, okay, well, that thing is over. Let's get back to what we were doing before without looking like, okay, what are the ramifications of what has happened for the last 3 years that has literally sat everybody down? And it's one of the few things that sat people down for an extended time period, because you could think of all the things that have happened. I'm talking about in the United States primarily. We had like 9/11. that may have been a couple of weeks of like people sitting down feeling away. Definitely in New York, that was longer. But like we don't have a lot of things that sat everybody down. And then on top of that time, we were so charged at that time, bro. Like it was just everybody felt like it was like a political decision. So we sat down, and now the idea is like, well, if we could just get people back to where we were, then we'd be a better place for the economy. And it's just it's honestly just applying. It's like I'm trying to think of it. It's like taking a piece of drywall that you ripped off of the wall and just painting it and saying, "Okay, we're good," and putting it up.
Yo, you just triggered me. So I got a story time. You with me, Aaron? Hold on.
I'm with
give
you.
Me a second.
I'm with you.
Give me a second, y'all. So
Triggered and all.
I was in a house with roommates, right? And my roommates was like, "Yeah, we about to move out." I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna stay." But we had a flood. And they had already decided they were going to leave before the flood. But we had the flood, and I was in the basement. And the flood messed up the basement wall so much that they started to mold, right? And so our landlord came in. Mind you, my peoples are like, "Yo, we already out." So I was like, "Man, landlord, take care of it, and I'll still stay." Tell me why, after he did what he was supposed to do, clean up everything, fix all the walls and stuff, the walls started molding again. And I'm like, "Yo, what is that?" Tell me why he just broke away the wall. He didn't replace the whole wall.
He just cut a piece.
He just cut a piece out, and the mold that was still in the wall just reproduced. I'm like, my clothes got moldy, everything, because I put everything back, right? Like thinking everything's all good. And so I'm like, "Yo, you should probably take that whole wall out." But he was trying to cut corners and get things back to where it was without doing the proper things that need to go into place. See, I'm trying to connect it back. He didn't do the proper things. He was just like, "Oh, well, let's just get the ball back as quickly as possible for them." And I'm like, "Yes, but you didn't do what you needed to do to make sure the mold doesn't come back."
I think there's a perfect analogy that matches what Aaron was saying about the drinking. Literally, we've been living with mold forever, right? And COVID showed up and realized, hey, this is not what it's supposed to look like. And now people are like, "Okay, cool, well, but we've been living with mold, so we should just be fine," right? Like
You should be fine.
No, right? And I think I didn't know where you were going with that analogy. I mean, with that story.
I was triggered.
But that is a good,
I just try to connect it back at the end of the story. But yes,
it's definitely a good example of just kind of where we are, because like we were stuck in a perpetual, probably toxic circle of just like how we dealt with a lot of stuff. And it's like, we sat down, and one thing I wanted to say about that time that sat down too, you had to come to the understanding or the acceptance of death during COVID.
Ooh, yeah.
And the fact that there was a lot of people that died. I mean,
yeah.
I think,
did we deal with that?
I
Did we deal
don't
with
know
that?
if we dealt with that as a society, because that's a lot of people. A lot of people died, bro, and a lot of people were fearful for their life. And I think that's also a large part of that time period, because people were thinking you would get COVID and die, right?
I mean,
and so,
some people did.
And when you got COVID and you were like, "Oh my God, I don't know what's gonna happen," and they're like, "Oh well, fairly healthy people are fine." And I mean, I remember there was a conversation even at our job, and somebody's like, "Oh yeah, like people who are relatively healthy are still getting sick with COVID." And I'm like, we don't know what's gonna happen. So when you're faced with your ultimate death, you start to think about life differently. And I think that's where we're at, right? And now that we're trying to essentially allow the mold to regrow, it's like, but I don't want to live with mold anymore. So like, what do I do? So
I agree with that part, especially the part where you said that with life, because that's one of the things I know that I became very much abundantly aware of, is the fact that life is ridiculously short. There's this thing that's going around the internet where it's like they break down the average person's lifespan by summer, and like I think they say you only have X amount of summers, and then when you start hearing it put like that, it's like that's a relatively short period of time, and then you realize how much time you're you're spending commuting. Like you actually look at hours now, whereas before it wasn't really something that was considered as much. But it's like,
Mhm.
yo, it's almost like your currency. Like I just spent 1 hour of my time commuting to this place. Then I'm going to spend another hour of my time leaving this place. Then I'm going to spend maybe 8, 9 hours at this place, you know? And it's just like, as you watch just days deplete, your life is slowly just being taken away from you. And I think, at least for me, I became more aware of that it's just slowly depleting. I mean, come on. It is now February of 2024. We just started the year and it already feels like lose it's starting to go out of control. So I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things too, is just people got a lot more life back during the pandemic, and now getting
Mhm.
so much of their life taken away from them, it does feel tiring. It does feel
Yeah.
like it's burning you out because you're literally having life removed from you
Yeah.
slowly, and it's being taken away.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, speaking of like, life in short amount of summers, um, one of the things I know my friend group made a point to do once we figured out that we can kind of go outside a little bit more is meet up, right? And during the COVID process, for me, I'm not meeting nobody. I'm gonna say I was already like kind of like a loner type guy, but I still had my social, groups and things that I would go join and stuff. But once COVID hit, it kind of like shut all that down, right? And for me personally, it took me a long time to even trust the world again, right? Because I already felt like I'll give you examples. It's very easy. Metro. I don't ride the metro anymore. As soon as COVID happened, the metro was a done deal for me because it was already nasty before COVID. The mold was already there, all up and through the train. No disrespect, but there's some trifling people on there. So I'm like, yo, I had to change the way I even commute to work, right? Which we talk about the hours. For me, I think it probably takes longer for actually it should be quicker to drive. But because of what happened with COVID, I think that there's more people driving than taking the train.
Yeah. I mean, basically what you just said, like, you don't feel comfortable going on the train, so everybody got cars, and when everybody get cars, congestion goes up.
And so I guess people are not putting that into the equation though. Cause it's like, oh yeah, it's just the same old, same old. It's like, no. I think there's way worse people driving now. I think two things. Either they forgot how to drive because they haven't drove in like 2-3 years, or yeah, or they are new drivers. Say if you just got your license 2019, top of the year 2020. Could you imagine? Like, and mind you, the freshness of learning how to drive is probably still there.
Yeah, I don't even think it's just. I don't even think it's just new drivers. I think it's literally people. Well, there's a couple things that happen during that time period. Remember, used car sales, because of COVID, you couldn't get new cars, so used
Skyrocket.
cars, it was through the roof. And so as
Yeah.
a result, people were just buying cars. I remember one time we were driving around and we were playing a game of how many temporary tags we saw in cars. So all those people still have their cars and they're not getting back on the metro. I haven't touched the metro yet.
You haven't touched it?
I have not gone back to the metro yet. So I understand the feeling of that. So yes, the
Good
roads
stuff,
are going to
man.
be more congested. I can't. It's the same reason. I just don't feel. I don't feel ready for that level of intimacy. I remember being on being on the metro and being like, face to face with somebody because it's packed.
Yeah,
Like
like sardines.
that used to be my life, and I'm like, yo, I don't even know you, and we have just spent 6 car rides length face to face. Buy me a drink first, right? Like, what is happening? But
Can I throw a
that
wrench in there though?
go ahead.
If you're missing motivation from your life in any facet, start riding the metro again. I believe
Hmm.
that going through those kinds of conditions makes you say, I got to get it together. Like,
You know what?
this can't be life.
You know what? I actually I think I'm gonna do that
When you're
just for a
comfortable in
reminder.
your car, you
Yeah,
can only get but so upset because it's like, oh man, this traffic, I'm upset, but you're still in the luxury of your car. You got the heat going,
you
you
can
got your
That's true.
control it.
music
That's
playing,
true.
Yeah,
you might have a
Mhm.
nice warm cup of coffee right next to you. So for the most part, you're still chilling. But when you're on the metro,
It's a different
and
beast.
some
yo,
human being who probably doesn't have the best of oral hygiene is sitting
oh,
right in front of your face. People are coughing, people are sneezing. You might hear a baby crying. There might be a homeless person wandering onto the metro.
Oh
You never know
man.
what's going on. That's when you start looking around and you're like, I
I gotta
really
get
got to
my
get
life
my
together.
act together.
You know
Trust
what?
me,
That
no
is
one comfortable is saying I got to get my life together. It's the people in those uncomfortable situations.
that is true. But speaking of that, I guess the question is, and transition is, how are you coping with where we are right now, and
Good
how
question.
how what are some ways we could start talking about like balancing the burnout, because all these words have become very cliche to people, like even
Hmm.
mental health sounds like,
Yeah.
oh, mental health is, and I'm like, bro, what I've always said, if your brain tells your right foot to shut down, your right foot's out of commission. There's nothing you can do about it. So like it is an important thing, but like, yeah, so let's, I guess, we spent a long time talking about like the
The
issues
problem.
and
Yeah.
how do we transition, or how do we cope now and going into the future to have more of a, I guess, stress free, burnout free life.
Hmm. So
Okay. So
you
go
go ahead,
ahead,
Aaron.
MVP.
Okay.
Somebody go first.
Rock, paper, scissors. All right. So for me, which I know you say mental health, but my word that I've been using is getting my zen together, right?
Mm,
And my zen consists of physical and spiritual and mental. So that's the only way I think I can tackle it. And I've been putting like the building blocks into place to tackle that. But the zen, and I've actually been able to get my zen together for like a certain period of time, and I've noticed it relieve the stress. One of the things that helps me get my zen together is understanding I can't control everything. Because one of the things that plagues my mind is that I don't like it when people do things that involve me that don't make sense, right? And so, example is the idea that the job that I've been doing remotely for 3 years, I need to go into an office to do it, right? I understand that companies have this office building that they paid money for and nobody's in there. And so I guess my thing is you should put in the time to figure out how to remove that if that's a problem for you, because I've been able, and other people in multiple fields have been able to show you that they can do their job without having to be in the office, right? And so that causes stress on me because I'm like, well, then one, if you just tell me, hey, we're paying a lot of money for this thing, I want you to come in because we're paying a lot of money. That's different than saying, hey, come in to do your job. And I'm like, why? Well, because you need to come in. That's a little different from me. So I'm like, that has caused stress on my mind. But the way I've been getting my zen together is like, yo, you can't control that, right? Because your job is going to do whatever is best for them. And the only thing you can do is maintain and then eventually do what's best for you. So, not trying to control everything is one of the ways that I get my zen together. I'll put it off to y'all because I have more, but I kind of want to like go around the room.
Yeah. Aaron.
Go. So for me, it's been trying to do more of the things that I find that adds value to my life. So for instance, I like to go for walks. Like, when like, it's the winter time here in the East Coast, and we get a lot of dreary, gray, snowy, overcast, just depressing days. So one of the things that I personally like is I like going out for walks. And on days when there's a lot of sun, I'll do more of that. I feel like that adds value to me because I feel good after a walk. I'm working out more. I'm eating right. I'm back into meal prepping. Things that add value to my life that actually give me a little bit more energy, a little bit more vibrance. That's what I'm trying to lean into a little bit more. Spending time with people you love and care about. Um, Therapy, if you have things that you need to talk about, go talk about it, get it off your back. So leaning into more of those quote unquote self-care items is what I'm doing. Also, on top of that, I'm trying to not be the person, which is sad, but it's kind of necessary in order to not feel that burnout. When I do anything, I want to do it at the highest level that I think I'm capable of, and anything less than that is usually not acceptable for me.
Mm.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly how I used to treat even work. I wanted
Yes.
to be better than everyone. I wanted to be more qualified than everyone. I just wanted to be the best. But in being the best, there's a lot of burnout that comes with that. And
Mm-hmm.
these
Yes.
companies do not compensate you for being the best. They just give you more work for being the best. So the people
Facts.
that aren't the best can continue to
Preach.
just like chill. So I've realized when I look around the landscape, it's like, wow, there's a lot of people here who are not stressing the way that I do. And then I look at what they do and what they contribute, and it's like they really do not care. They're just coming in, they're doing what they have to do, and then they're done. And then the people who are giving 110%, they're the ones that are kind of like you're seeing the effects of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're easier to trigger. They have a lower ability to handle situations that cause stress. They're a little bit more on edge, so to speak. So I don't want to be one of those people. So you kind of have to like naturally just move over to that other side where you're doing your job, but you're not trying to be that guy. So I'm okay with that. So that's another element that I've had to kind of implement in order to remove a little bit of that feeling of stress. Also, when home, maybe even though it's not the most productive use of time, hey, there might be a series you want to check out, turn it on, check that series out, play a video game, whatever it is that I need to do to feel as if I am de-stressing a bit. That's what I'll do. And even on those days when I'm working from home, I have it right here. I light it up. It's a candle, little aromatherapy. That way, when I'm working, I'm a little bit more, as NVP said, at Zen. So just things like
Mhm.
that is what I've been implementing. And as the weather gets better, I'm sure I'll find other ways to do more. But that's kind of where I am in terms of the things I'm implementing to try to stave off a bit of that feeling of burnout that we're discussing.
Yeah. I would
Good
say,
stuff.
yeah, I would say I love what both you guys are saying. One of the things I think I'm trying to do now is I am trying to one get a routine back in place, which is what you guys are saying in different, like in different ways. But one of the things I'm trying to do is become a ruthless prioritizer when it comes to the stuff that I have. So like literally, if I'm doing anything, I gotta write it down. I have like we use Notion, but like I have a Notion template that I literally put everything I'm working on for work, for in crowd, for my personal life, for the house, and I'm trying to get to the point where I don't do anything until it's on that list. Reason being for me is like I'm a person that does multiple things, and you guys have both seen this because like like we're doing this. I do music. I do all these things that I want to do, but I feel like I do a lot of everything and nothing at the same time. And that
Busy
adds to the
work.
burnout. Yeah, it adds to the burnout for me because I'm just like, well, I know I've been busy, but I don't necessarily accomplish anything, right? Like, and sometimes it's good to see things like just move off the list, right? And so trying to that is my I don't really believe in New Year's resolutions, but that's something I'm trying to focus on this year. Because I know that in order to get to the next level of what I need to do, I have to be a master at prioritizing. And I think time management has always been a problem for me because I'm always all over the place. So that has been a new thing, and establishing a routine, not even again because it's establishing a routine now. Because I think one of the things we also have to stop trying to apply to it is trying to say we're gonna get back to what we used to have. it's a different time. You're older people. Your focus is a little different. You might be able to skip, when you were young, you might be able to skip sleeping, but can't really do that as much now, right? Like
Right.
there's certain things that you literally should be taken care of. And it's like, it's like a car. If you buy a new car, first, 50,000 miles, you probably drive it like nothing, right? But after that 50,000 miles, you gotta get the transmission checked. You gotta, you know what I'm saying? And honestly,
maintenance.
it's just life, right? And as we talk about the fact that we're valuing life higher, you have to prioritize certain things about health. And I think, we're starting to see that. Like, I know for me, I've had some stuff that had to put me, it put me on my ass, where I'm like, all right, you got to slow down, my guy. So that's kind of that's all I say. Like, trying to get to the point where my routines allow space for all the things that I want, and the space to decompress and not feel guilty about it. That's the other thing that from before I used to be, oh no, I'm just watching TV, and it's like, yo, you could have done so much things in this time period. But it's like, yo, same thing using the car analogy, bro. If your car is just sitting running right now and you all the time, you're extending the amount of maintenance you need to do on it. Sometimes you got to park the shit up, man. So that's a hard thing. I remember, long story short, there was this girl that I was talking to, and one of my friends was like, yeah, you need somebody to tell you when you got to sit down. I was like, sit down? What do you sit down? I got so much stuff to do. What are you talking about sitting down? Your body will tell you to sit down eventually, bro. And you just need to, you got to, if you want the maximum output, you got to foster the environment that allows for the maximum output. You can't just burn, they said burn the candles on both ends, which is such a stupid statement, because why would you have a candle wick on the bottom of the candle? Either way. But if you think about it, if you had both ends with a candle wick, how are you putting it down? Anywhere you put it, it's gonna. Yeah. So. Yeah. So those that's kind of one of the things that I'm trying to prioritize, and one of the main things too is give yourself grace. Like the gratitude. Like I've been trying very hard, and I think you guys have seen it. I've been trying very hard to spread gratitude as a thing, because it changes your mindset on stuff. Like as you interact with other people. I was like, I was telling MVP recently, I'm like, I think he saved me probably from like quitting my job recently, because had he not stopped and said, hey, bro, are you okay? Right? Like, and that he's like, yo, I'm noticing that you normally operate this way and you're not operating this way. And to me, I thought I was, doing great. I thought I was just holding it all together. And if it wasn't for the fact that he did that, I don't know what I would have done. I'm like, I just was in a place where I was just kind of like mentally unstable, and having that person call out that sees you on a day-to-day basis, call out, hey, something's up. Are you okay? I have to give the gratitude for that, because I could have put myself in a whole different situation. So gratitude is, I guess I should start in the other order. I think gratitude is the most important thing, because honestly,
I agree.
Right now we don't know what's the next thing coming around the corner. You don't know also by telling somebody, yo, I appreciate you letting me know what you notice, how that affects them. So.
Yeah, I
100%,
like that.
I agree with that. That gratitude and gratefulness is definitely something that I've stepped into more as well. So I'm appreciative of you even mentioning that.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I liked some things that you said. One of the things that goes back to what Aaron was saying about the not always trying to be the guy, not always trying to be the 110%er. Because that's one of my issues. Is like, I don't. It's funny because Aaron's view is, hey, I want to be the best. I don't even care about being the best. I just don't want you to talk to me about anything. That's my view. Like, hey, if I do the right thing, you should probably just leave me alone, right? And so
you're the person they're gonna come to, though.
But that's the thing. I loved what you said, which was like, yo, when you are the 110%er,
just get more work.
You get more work. That's
it.
Which is it's like hard for me, because then I'm like, well, then I'm just gonna do the more work. but you still better not bother me after you give me this work. You know what I'm saying? Until something else need to be done. But I guess my thing is, it's like trying to get out of this burnout. It's like, yo, one of the issues was, hey, seeing other people give 80 and getting more reward for what they're doing. Maybe because they're good at making it seem like they're like doing the best.
They're playing the game, yeah.
And I'm like, I've never been the person who wants to like act like I'm working, because that takes too much of my energy. I'd rather just do the work and then go home, right? Or go wherever I'm going. It's just easier for me. But I'm like, hey, to help myself with the burnout, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be the person doing everything. I'm going to ask for help. Hey, I need your help. Oh, or I'm going to ask for help, but actually direct it too. Like, hey, I have this thing that I could do, but you know what? I've been doing that for a while and it's burning me out. Can you help me? Because people love to say, beautiful. Hey, let me know when you can help. I mean, let me know if I can help you. And I'm like, cool, but I never asked for the help. That's something I'm changing in 2024.
Honestly, that's something I need to adopt myself. Because
Can I add something in with
ahead.
a conversation I was having with Styles just recently?
Sure.
Okay.
So UPS, as we know, had these major boycotts where all the union guys, they walked out, they were boycotting work and all of this stuff. They wanted higher pay. They got their higher pay. And some of these guys, from what I'm reading, drivers are making up to $170,000 a year as a UPS driver. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it, but they have that money. So now, adding into the conversation that MVP was just having, as you being the guy that wants to be left alone because you're putting in that work and you're doing it, one of the things we have to remember is that companies are machines built for profit, and they tend to want to operate as efficient and as lean as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So now, in a situation where you're a person that's giving 110% and you want to be left alone because, hey, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, that's really not what's going to happen. Companies needing to be efficient and needing to run as lean as possible are going to then lay off people because, hey, we got a guy like MVP that could probably do the job of two other people that we had here. We're going to get rid of those people. MVP, these are now your additional tasks because you are that guy. So that's what is going to happen in the long run. Unfortunately, we're not going to see a situation where you're that guy and you're left alone. You being that guy will get you more work, which is in turn going to lead to the burnout, and you're not going to get the pay. So you have to find kind of what works for you because, again, I personally find that the biggest area of burnout for me is in my work, especially having to return to the office and now give massive chunks of my time to the company just in commuting to and from the place of business.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. I mean, I think at the core of that is you have to know when to and when not to apply that like that's how your new modus operandi needs to be like, okay, I know when I need to go 100 and when I need to pump the brakes, because the truth is, like, as we're seeing, to Aaron's point and your point also, is that if you give 110, you're going to be paid for 70. And when they realize you're giving 110, they give you even more work, which means you're going to be paid for 60.
Your productivity and your pay are not hand in hand, right?
And it's like, for me, as I look at what my own like outside driving forces, like what we're doing here with this, if I had put in 70 at a time when I was giving my job 110, I would have reaped bigger benefits. Now, there's not a guarantee that, and it's not for everybody, right? Like, just because you're like, oh, I want to go be an entrepreneur, doesn't mean that you're automatically going to have a win or you're going to have, but like, one of the things that I feel like I don't get from work is the satisfaction of like, okay, well, you did a good job on this, right? Like, this is the thing. I liken it back to when I cut my grass, right? Okay. And I finish cutting the grass. I look at my yarn, like my lawn, and I'm like, Yeah, you did that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
did that,
yeah.
right? You did
hold
that.
On, hold on. Are your lines straight?
Listen, everything is everything.
You ain't do it if the lines ain't straight.
Even if the lines aren't straight, you still did that.
Okay.
But it's mine. I control that, right? And it's funny because like I have an HOA and there's a part of my lawn, like the shared space that they cut, and I cut over it because they just be doing a trash job, right? But it's the same thing here. It's like you have to figure out what you want to apply your time to. And honestly, it's not about even just about like job wise. It's about family. It's about other pursuits. It's about health. If if that's your focus for you, then it should be your focus because we all, I'm assuming, want to live for a little longer, right? Like I would hope that's the goal. So yeah, I think it's really about, applying that to things that like match your value set and maybe spending some time and figuring out what your values are. Because that's one thing I feel like COVID forced you to do. Hey, what do I care about? Because at one point, it didn't matter what's going on, man. We just did what we had to do for work.
Yeah.
We did whatever it had to do. And it's 100%. Like, I know that like for me, and like my current gig, I definitely dedicated like years at a time where I stopped everything. I barely talked to, I didn't know you like that, but I barely talked to Aaron in that time period. I was just all in work. I was back and forth. I wasn't even in my house. My apartment was empty most days because I was moving around trying to make it work. And now that doesn't count for anything. It doesn't count for anything, right? Like it
even on a financial level.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It does. It didn't. It didn't give me, because you know what? The natural thing I think that we think is, I'll take MVP's like leave me alone thing. I think more than anything else, the idea is that I am doing a good job. You let me do my shit.
That's the essence of it.
Let me do my thing. Pay me for what I do, right? Like these, I think I'm just like extrapolating from your statement. And in most cases, it doesn't feel like those are a thing. That happens. It ends up feeling that you are giving, it's like this tug of war. You're doing this thing. Like I did all of that not because I was expecting to get promoted. I was just like, I believe I can do this. I know that I can provide value, and providing value is like what we're supposed to be doing because we're given a check to provide value, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I could do this, and I saved that company a ton of money. I remember like we were building a warehouse, and this dude came in a Jaguar, cowboy boots and a hat, and he was charging them like $800,000 to do what I did with one other guy.
Wow. Cowboy boots, huh?
Cowboy boots in the Jaguar, bro. And
nice.
If they, you know what? I was like, nah, I could do it. Now, does that count for anything now? Nope. It doesn't. They gave me a raise. I got a little bit more money. But if you look at what was saved versus what was actually done, it doesn't match. And honestly, as a company, they don't need to match it, right? Because no company's going to pay me $800,000 to do what I did, right? Like,
but there's a guy that was going to be paid $800,000.
I need some cowboy boots and a hat and a Jaguar. Like, I realize I'm in the wrong field. But no, on a serious note, but like, they're not going to pay you.
You need whatever is intangible that he has.
Yeah. They're not going to pay you for what they already are paying you for if you're willing to give that. So, like, if you're willing to give them $800,000 worth of work, but they pay you less than that,
they're going to take that.
They're going to take... Yeah. It's good business, unfortunately.
Yeah. I wouldn't turn that down.
Of course not.
So, I say all that to say is you have to prioritize yourself and what you want to do, and know that you are the captain of your ship. So no one else is going to make the best decisions for you, right? Like you that's how you end up with the Titanic. Like, like you have to be cognizant of the fact that you have to play the game with the mindset that you are going to do what's best for you, because ain't nobody else going to do it for you. So.
And I was going to equate that to back to the whole social interactions and social groups. And one of the things that I have a problem with is I'm the guy who's like, hey, I'm just going to do work. And if I'm 110%er, it might take me longer to do all the work that's been given to me and not provide enough time or energy for the other things that during COVID I realized mattered, like friends and family. and like actually like taking the time to like have some fucking fun. I'm like, sorry, I had to put an emphasis on that because I'm like, I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, when the last time I had fun? Like, I've been so focused, like, hey, career, hey, taking care of home, hey, building myself up within, I got a new skincare routine. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, getting myself together, and I'm like, but I ain't really spent much time like just bullshitting with the homies that I used to do.
Well,
Like hanging out with some people or even family. Like we still do a little bit of family outings because we sprinkled them in there during the COVID. But like as a whole, I'm like, yeah, I think it's important to help with the burnout part. I feel like I do a lot of things where I have to think and calculate and analyze. But when you just hanging out at freaking King's Dominion, you know what I'm saying? We was like, yo, all I gotta analyze is like, yo, is that roller coaster too high for me right now? Like, do I want to get on that? You know what? You only live once. Let's get on it. Like, I want to just chill and have those type of thoughts. Hey, let's go over here and just like, enjoy some music or band over here or something like that. I don't have to really put much thought into that. And so those are some of the things that this year that I do want to incorporate into my life more. But I feel like for me to incorporate that, I'm going to have to pump the brakes on trying to just go full throttle 24 hours every day, every week, all the months of the year, trying to get to the path that I want to get to. It's important, but you still got to give your time. You still got to give yourself that relaxation time. And that's kind of what I wanted to bring to the conversation.
Intentionality, man. You got to be intentional about it now. I think that
intentional. Yeah.
Before COVID, we had a lot of those things naturally built in, and COVID stopped that. And I think, honestly, if you think about how we were coping with that pandemic time, a lot of people just fairly focused on work because it was the one thing outside of the fact that we don't know, there's this mystery illness that's killing a bunch of people. Like when you saw the death toll, that thing was that was like genocide, bro. Like that's big numbers that died, right? Like
it kept climbing, yeah.
And we just threw ourselves into work. And I think that honestly, as you described that is really the burnout problem. It's like, yeah, work was the distraction at that time, and now it's a whole nother, it's work and commute, and it's like, yeah, it's a thing.
And I was gonna say that I think it almost like messed with our head because there were people who didn't have a job. So it was like, yo, I really need to be like, I can't play with work. I'm not saying you play with work, but you had to really, because like your three of your homies don't even have a job right now. So not only is people getting sick and dying, but people are not having jobs. Like it's so much going on, bro. You have to get focused and make sure you and your family are good. So
Facts.
I think that was definitely a big part of going through COVID. And now it's like, okay, maybe you can breathe a little bit, but are you breathing? Or are you still going like, tunnel vision?
Slowly but surely.
Well, one of the things I don't want to call out too, and we're going to try to start having some of these conversations in our Discord that we are created.
Hey.
So we're going to plug that in here too. And hopefully, create a community of people, like-minded people who are, coming up with solutions. Because I definitely think, look, we identified a couple of things that you could do to kind of deal with that. But there's probably a wealth of things that other people are experiencing, and we need to just be a thing, make that community again. And I think that's what's missing. I think we're missing the community aspect that we had naturally, because I think of all the people that like at my different jobs that are, like, because actually both of you are from like jobs that like that's how we got introduced, and there was a natural way of just like, okay, cool, well, let's get together and bond over the trauma of dealing with this over some cocktails, right? Like, it's like it was a thing. So we want to try to see if we can, create that community here again, and just find some solutions to get us to a better place.
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to call out too, I forgot for when Aaron was talking, is therapy. I know that therapy is such a scary thing for a lot of people, but like having a professional that you talk to, that you pay to give an unbiased opinion, is probably something everybody needs, especially after this. I think it's something that we've needed for a long time, but like, you know, I've said it multiple times, and I realized I was talking out my side of my mouth because I didn't have one. But
Right.
getting one was probably one of the best decisions I made over the last couple. It just helped me so much. So
That's good. That's
Good
good.
call out.
yeah, I just want to call that out. I feel like we're in a space where we've kind of gotten to a conclusion for this, unless there was other points.
I think
Uh,
so. I think we identified the problems with burnout. We've given our own personal insights as to what we're doing in order to help alleviate that. But MVP,
I wanted to add something into this because I was thinking about it, and I have to get y'all opinion. Music. Have you been listening to music like that?
You know what? That's a good question. So not really, but then there's
And I'm talking about from COVID
yeah,
to now.
yeah. There was a point where I like actually, and I noticed was actually very relaxing, where I literally just found myself listening to music again, which is a weird thing because as a musician, you'd assume I listen to music, right? Like, or as a DJ, I would like, but I wasn't listening to new stuff. Also, a lot of the new stuff is trash.
It's trash.
I was about to say it seemed to me
know.
personally like the music industry has some sort of its own pandemic going on because it's a lot of trash, and I struggle to find music that I actually enjoy. As someone that even does reviews here, it's a struggle to find like you hit play on that first track and it's like, okay, this is bad. And then you listen to the second track and the third track, and it's like, I don't want to be in a position of having to continuously just dole out reviews on albums that just suck. But
Yeah.
someone point me in the direction of where they're making good music because it seems like we are starving for quality music.
And that's what I was gonna say. I think contributes to my burnout is that I'm not listening to music. One thing I realized during COVID, I was like, you know, so because I used to listen to music when I would clean up, and I was like, yo, and I'm listening to certain music that I feel like had a lot of negative energy, and I'm like,
Lot of
you do
Pooh
know
Shiesty.
music. Come on, bro. Like, I'm like, yeah, you know, and now and then is cool. But I'm like, all the stuff that's coming out is just like super ratchet and super violent and super
Agreed.
there's not enough balance in the music industry, in my opinion. Where yes, if I want to be violent for today and be turned up, cool. But then if I want just some like J. Cole's idea of like someone who puts out something that I can listen to and it's not super like negative energy coming at me, and I'm like, I just stopped listening to it because I'm like, I'm already in a space of COVID where like things aren't the best. You know what I mean? And I'm contributing to that negative energy of COVID with negative music that's trash that just keeps coming out. So I kind of just stopped listening to music altogether and picking like slight things that might come across my way. But I do think that I don't know, like you said, hey, somebody hop in the Discord or comment and like, yo, I want some music that's dope. Like I don't like boring beats. Like I want some dope music, but also not super violent either. Like I don't want to hear about like doing a bunch of drills all the time.
Yeah, I think that is probably a symptom of the sitting down and being self-aware of where we're at.
Yeah.
I think that because that's what we're seeing. We are seeing the natural order being shook up, and it's evident in every facet of our. Even thinking about like the shows you watch and consume, like it's different. Like you're just in a space where it. You know, we talked about the great. Well, I actually said it,
Resignation?
the great resignation, but I think there's
Okay.
been a great awakening in the average person. And I think you really is looking at life slightly differently. And yeah, it's like, you could get moments where you're like, yeah, I want that aggressive stuff, but like, it's not necessarily all you want. And honestly, as a musician, it's a great time for you now because you could be realistic. Like, what is your life about? Right. But I think we're gonna have to search, and maybe that's a section. Maybe we do add a review or music thing to the thing where people could drop music and have some interactions because
I'm
I
not-
can't find them.
Right, and I'm not like ignorant to the point where I know the music is out there, but I feel like the mainstream, we know mainstream has pushed certain type of music. Yeah, I think it's gotten worse now to where they only push the ratchet stuff and the stuff that like I don't necessarily need to hear this on the radio every freaking time. Like R&B is not really R&B anymore. Like I'm not hearing a lot of R&B songs anymore. I'm not hearing a lot of like just like in the mainstream, right? I'm not hearing like conscious rap anymore. I'm hearing just like a lot of ratchet stuff, and then you got sprinkled with like some people who are still trying to give us something different, right? So that's
Right.
all I'm saying. Like the music I do think would help with the whole part of getting the zen together. To the point where I'm like, I'm listening to, which sounds crazy, but like traditional Asian music. There's no words. Like
Bong.
it's
You
just
said
it's
exactly what I
it's
was
just
gonna say.
flutes and freaking. I don't even know the instruments they're using. I feel like they have like actual butterflies like flying past the mic and stuff like this. It feels like the world when I listen to it. Like I should be out in the forest or something. And I'm like, I've started listening to that because I'm like, you know what? I don't even want to hear what people are talking about anymore.
So Andre
So,
3000 was
I
onto something.
got you. Yo, you took the words out my mouth. I was waiting to say it.
Uh-oh.
He was onto something.
Uh-oh.
But honestly,
But-
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say to continue what MVP was saying. I do a lot of listening of music with no words. So you just listen to lo-fi, and then I'll just do
Mhm.
this: grab a book,
Grab a book.
little lo-fi, little book. That helps. You don't need the words.
I like that because and that's a different way to tackle it too. Because I think the words and what they're saying, like even like I think it's a subconscious thing that we don't realize that could affect the way you go about the world.
It's just like where people are more health conscious. You're more conscious of what you're putting in to your body.
there you go.
It's more conscious. It's like, I look at it like, first of all, you talk about J. Cole, and I didn't expect us to go down the music bag because we can literally have a whole another hour just talking about it. But I do want to say like I what J. Cole has been doing has been freaking a godsend, bro. Like listen to the records that he's actually spitting. He's actually like saying stuff in a time where it, we get the like, just like you said, the ratchet music. And the thing about music right now that's irritating me the most is that stuff doesn't even sound polished. It just sounds so like amateur. Like I remember listening to like Sexy Red, for example.
Oh man.
It doesn't matter how good her records are. It always sounds like she should have re-recorded it. And there's certain people who that was their thing. So like
Griselda.
what?
Griselda. They had their music, which it doesn't sound like that anymore, but they had the music where like it sounded like almost old school. Like they didn't use the most high end equipment, if that makes any sense, to record it. So
I don't know. I mean, we really need to figure out a space for these music conversations because they do need to exist somewhere. But I don't know. We'll figure that out once we get our stuff rolling. But yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
I think we're good to go there because I'm gonna keep going if we don't. And like we're already at an hour. So if you made it this far, as I always say, we appreciate you. If you even checked it out at all, we appreciate you. Like,
Facts.
we're out here trying to just create content, and in the world of the Ratchet podcast, we're trying to be, steak. We're not out here selling, what men should do and what women should do, and like you're just trying to be authentic people.
I like it.
That's a fact because I'll tell you, if we go down that nasty red pill road, we probably would blow
son.
up. But can you live with yourself?
That's what I always looked at like World Star Hip Hop, and I was like, if I did the World Star Hip Hop, I'd probably make a lot of money right now. But I don't want to go that route, and that's no disrespect to them because they built their empire on doing their thing. But that's never been my thing. It's just like I don't want to just say something clickbaity just to make. We're literally making content like in the world of, I'm not going to say a specific brand. In the world of fast food podcasts, we're trying to be a steak with some veggies on the side.
We're trying to be
nice,
wagyu.
A nice paired, maybe red or white, depending on what it is. Like
red wine,
in an experience on a rooftop with the right lighting. Like I'm talking not just the food. We're trying to be an experience and just be real. Like, I think that's what's missing in the world. Just real. Like, there's not a lot of real people anymore. Everybody's just trying to do something buzzwordy or say some crazy, stuff on the podcast. Like, oh, I'm not going to date a man unless he makes $8 million a year. And like, yo, you don't even know nobody. You know nobody that makes $8 million a year, but you want that? Like, I don't want none of that. And I've never wanted that. And I've aligned myself with people who are being authentic to ourselves. And I'm very happy. And it's going to be a long road, but we're going to get there. We gonna get there. So
that's funny.
But
8 million.
The 8 million. No, I mean if you look at a lot of podcasts and a lot of the clips, you're like, yo, shut that person's podcast, man. Shut them off. What are you talking about, bro? Shut them off. I don't want to hear nothing about your opinions. Like, and I know that's kind of it's kind of hypocritical because that's what we're here giving our opinions.
Yeah.
But I want to say my opinion is not half baked, bro. Like it's like it's my opinion, and honestly, if my opinion feels, and we've had these conversations about people who listen to our stuff. If you feel like I'm wrong, I'm willing to have a conversation. Some of these people are saying stuff and then they're running off, and you never hear from them again. So
I would say that here at In Crowd, we have realistic discussions for real people.
Facts.
Ooh,
facts.
Put it on a shirt.
Yeah.
Big facts.
Realistic discussions for real people.
Yeah, because if you're having that kind of conversation, you're clearly not living in the day-to-day world. But as Styles was gonna say,
yeah, we're the non-ratchet music in the landscape of the skies, So we appreciate you for making it this long.
Gratitude.
Yeah, bro. That's the thing that I have to say, and that's all I got. So this has been another episode of Juxtaposed. We'll be back. I'll be back. I don't know what the fuck that was. I'll see y'all.